Hey there, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video. I hope that everybody's doing good today. I am enjoying the last weekend of summer before my kids go back to school Tuesday. So we had fun playing in the water today. You know, they were getting their inner Little Mermaid out. So that was fun. And now I want to talk about 90 Day Fiancé Before the 90 Days, Season 6, Episode 13, Modern Romance. So we're going to go ahead and just get right into it. I'm going to start with Christian and Cleo. Cleo tells us that after meeting with the astrologer, she's feeling concerned by some of the things that came up. She feels like there's a lot of work for them to do to get back to where they were before the issues. Even before, like, they've had issues since before he got there, like while he was on the plane. So I think she means before they met or something. She tells us that they're both into movies and comics, and they've talked a lot about wanting to do cosplay together. So they're going to do something fun to reconnect as a couple, and they go to a costume shop. Christian says he wants to have fun with her because they've been on shaky ground for a few days now, and despite their differences, he hopes that it can work out. He tells her to find a flapper girl costume, and he's going to find a gangster one, so it's kind of a 20s theme. Then we get another bad impression from Christian, and he says, "We're looking for a 1920s gangster look, and this is my floozy here," in a real bad accent that I certainly am not going to recreate. And Cleo asks what floozy means, and he tells her that it's like skank, and she's just like, oh. But I would say it was just like a loose woman or something, promiscuous. I don't know. Skank is a little harsh. So the guy or person working at the shop comes over to measure Christian, and he tells him he has the smallest or tiniest neck he's ever seen or fitted, like one of the smallest necks. And Cleo yells, "Yeah, my Adam's apple is bigger than his." I thought that was great, that these two were just roasting him. The shop person tells us, most people have a 15-inch collar, and his is 14. So, cool, I guess. It's not like extremely small compared to that. But then Christian gets to do another impression. He does the shop guy in the interview. I think that doing impressions is Christian's bad party trick or something. But anyways, it's time for the big costume reveal. She tells him he looks great, and he's like, "Yeah, you look pretty good too." Like, I still never heard him say anything like super nice to her. Like, "You're gorgeous, radiant, stunning." He's like, "Oh, you look pretty good." And poor Cleo's like, "Oh, you're out of my league." It's like, come on now. She does a little spin per his request, and he teaches her a flapper dance. Next up, we got like the knight costume and a maiden. And she likes his look. She tells him it's hot. She says seeing him dressed as a knight, it does it for her. And she can't believe she got him by just being her weird, usual weird self online. Like, once again, she thinks he's like way above her, and that's not true. I think it's the other way around. Like, he needs her to feel good about himself. So he says he has a gift for her. He pulls it out. It's a necklace. And he's like, "Oh, it's sterling silver." He says it like it's 24 karat gold and diamonds or something. It's like, okay, good. Her neck won't turn green. I buy everything sterling silver. So I was just like, the way he made it sound was like it's not common, and I think it is. Anyway, she loves it. She tells him, he didn't have to do it. He wanted to give her a physical thing to represent his love for her. She's like, did you say your love for me? And he did. He says he wants to keep working on them. And he wants her to know that he's serious. She gives him a big old hug. He puts on the necklace. And she tells us she's just so happy right now. He bought her another piece of jewelry when they went to Portobello Road. So that was another token of his. I think, wasn't that a representation of him coming to see her? I don't know. He gives her little breadcrumbs of jewelry, not cheap jewelry, to keep her interested. I don't know. I just wish he was nicer to her. Despite having rough days with him, she knows he's a goofy boy who might make mistakes, but he has a good heart and he sees her for who she is. And, it's not easy for her to find someone like that. So she does really want this to work. She just hopes that they're headed to the next step of truly being committed to each other before he leaves. And, I thought that they were already boyfriend-girlfriend, but maybe she just means 100% commitment. I don't know. But next time we see them, they're headed Thanksgiving shopping. He's having mixed emotions because he's not going to see his family. But him and Cleo are going to make dinner, and Jane will be there, which I think is good. It seems like it would be awkward, but he did say he wanted to see her again and kind of have a restart. So that's a good way to do it. He thinks they're finally hitting a stride in their relationship, and things are just going to get better. They get to the store, and she asks if they exchange gifts at Thanksgiving, and he tells her no. And then I remembered that Thanksgiving's just an American holiday, so I think it's pretty cool that she's going to celebrate it and do it for him, since she never has before. She doesn't know a lot about Thanksgiving, but she knows there's a lot of good food. He's telling her all the foods they need, and they're all canned foods, canned cranberries, canned corn, and they get a turkey, but it's just the center breast part, which is enough for them. He tells her that this is the first time that he's cooking Thanksgiving dinner with a girlfriend or anyone besides his family. And it's his first one on his own. And she's like, wow, that's a big deal. She's really excited. It means a lot to her. And, I think it's cool he's sharing the tradition with her. And, yeah, all of that. She tells us then that she's off to a long class. So he's going to go to the pub for some pints. And I'm like, no, don't do it. Please stop, don't. I felt like Willy Wonka because it's I still want to watch it, right? So we catch up with them 4 hours later. She gets home. He's full of booze, energy, and excitement. Runs up, kisses her. He gets her a glass of wine. He's like, I already drank some, but I left enough to save you a glass. Glass? She asks him if he's tipsy, and, he indeed is. He definitely had some cocktails. She asks what one. They both say old-fashioned at the same time. He's like, wow, we're finishing each other's sentences. And then he kisses her again. He tells her he had a good time. He stumbled around the neighborhood till he found a pub. And he sat at the bar. And what do you know? He met a gal. And what do you know? She was American. What are the odds? It's just unreal that American would be in London. I'm shocked. So they flash over to him at the bar, bragging about how he hasn't drank in a couple of days. And then he lies to this girl at the bar and says, he isn't a big drinker. Okay. But he's on vacation and he has nothing else to do. So that's his excuse for drinking, I guess. And he's like, cheers to Americans meeting in London, or some crap. And then he's like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to give you my social media before we go. Like, he's totally flirting with this woman. And then Cleo is like, well, is she excited to celebrate Thanksgiving? And he's like, well, she wasn't going to be able to, but guess what? I invited her to our Thanksgiving. And Cleo's like taken aback. And is like, oh. And he's like, what, do you think that's extremely forward? And I'm like, isn't extremely forward something you use to describe dating and like hitting on someone? Not like I don't know. So she's like, I'd have to know someone a couple years before inviting them to my home. And she's like, well, I'm exaggerating, but at least a couple months. And he's like, I just figured an American who was out and about might want to come to Thanksgiving. I'm like, well, what if it was an American man? Would you do the same thing, bro? Probably not. So Cleo says socializing can be hard for autistic people. So she prefers not to, especially like in unknown environments. She says he knows that about her, and she's frustrated and disappointed that he isn't making an effort to understand her needs or where she's coming from. I'm like, okay, this is not an autistic thing. It could be, but no one would be okay with this. Like, once again, he's the problem, and because she's autistic and things like that, she always puts it on herself. Like, nobody would be comfortable with their partner going to a bar and inviting some rando to Thanksgiving dinner because they're from the same place as them. Like, great. He didn't mention he had a girlfriend or anything. So she tells him, like, I'm on edge cooking anyway because she needs to focus on the recipe. And if there's a stranger there, it's going to be worse. And he's like, what if you meet her first? She's cool. She's like, yeah, I'll still get anxiety. Meet her first. Like, I'll invite her over right now because we're having Thanksgiving tomorrow. So you guys can just stay up all night chatting till you're comfortable. And then he's like, yeah, I must have jumped the gun on that one. He was just being chatty. Cleo is picking up on the fact that this isn't the first time that he's talking to other women. Whether it's on the plane or at a bar, she sees the pattern. So she's like, I'm going to go get ready for bed. And he tells us that, she tells us that even though his intentions are just to be friendly, it's a little strange to always seek attention and validation from other women. She thought they were in a better place, so this kind of hurts, and now she's worried again about their future. Yikes. I feel like he's really wrong here. I think when he gets drunk, he makes a lot of different choices than he does when he's sober. Like, when he was drunk, he was all over Cleo and like super affectionate and kissing her and all of this stuff. And when he's sober, it's like he can't be farther away from her, and then he just can't be bored. Like, he is not okay being alone by himself because she had class. He couldn't stay home and video chat his family because they're having Thanksgiving tomorrow without him. Anything else? No, he had to go to the bars and chat up women to make himself feel better because he's insecure, probably. So let me know what you thought about Christian and Cleo. I feel she's definitely going to get her heart broken at the end of this. I don't think he will. I don't think he's that invested. All right, moving on from those guys, let's talk about a couple who's not going to get my blood pressure elevated. Let's bring it back down. David and Sheila. We see David. He walks up to a guy. He says, like, hello, how can I help you? And good morning. And he looks confused because David just immediately starts, like, typing on his phone. But he tells him, he needs a ride to the store. And he asks him to call a cab. The guy's like, cool, it'll be there in 10 minutes. And I bet this happens to him a lot, where people just try to talk to him and then they're so confused when he doesn't respond. And I just feel bad. I actually worked with a deaf guy at a grocery store, and he was so cool. And after like years, I learned how to communicate with him pretty well. Not that I knew sign language, but I would see people all the time go up to him and start talking while he was stocking shelves and things. And he couldn't help them or respond. So anyways, he says that Sheila's going to a prayer service for her mom, and he's going to go shopping. And he says it's good that she's away because he's going to go buy something. And I bet we could all guess what that is. So he says Amy isn't available, and this is his first time in a foreign country alone without anyone to help him communicate. He's like scared about communication barriers, if people will ignore him. Is he going to be able to navigate the streets or find where he's going? But, he's doing it. He tells the cab driver he's deaf and asks where the ring store is, and he's like pointing him in a direction around the corner and then drives off. But luckily he has this nice lady. She kind of does the same pointing thing around the corner gesture. She just seemed like friendly though. He finds the ring store and she's like, "Good morning." And he tries to tell her that he's deaf, and she's like, "What do you want, sir?" And then he types it out that he's deaf, he's looking for a ring for his girlfriend. And then he tells us tomorrow they're going to the beach, that he booked a romantic getaway, and if it all works out, he's going to propose. He says that they've been through some tough times, but they have made a stronger relationship. And he's fallen in love with her in new ways. And mainly how she is with her family and her son. It makes his heart flutter. The lady working keeps asking him stuff like, "What size?" Big or little. And then she realizes or remembers that like he can't hear her. They're like trying to go through a few rings, and she keeps trying to talk to him. Finally, she just pulls all the rings out. He says that he feels awkward and lost, and it's hard to communicate and interact with the Filipino people because they don't understand his English on the phone. So they don't understand his texting, like when it reads it back to them. It's frustrating, but he has to be patient because, Sheila's worth it. He picks one out, and it ends up costing around $84 in American. So that's pretty nice. He wants to be with Sheila forever, but he isn't sure where her head is at. Like maybe it's not the right time to propose because of her mom. And her son doesn't want to move to America. But David doesn't know when he's going to get another chance. So we see him again, and he says he has a week or so left in the Philippines. They're getting ready for a romantic getaway. If the getaway goes well, he wants to propose on this trip. She's telling him she's excited for their trip. She can't wait to swim and go to the beach with him. He agrees. And she's like, "Wait, there's more. Like, can we not bring Amy? I want privacy with you without her." So he says, okay. She tells us that she's jealous with Amy being with them all the time because she's beautiful and her and David can communicate good with sign language. He says that's okay. He has stuff he wants to talk with her about without people there. She says, "Okay, honey, babe." And they're in the car ride. She tells him it's a long one. He's happy with that. He gets a nice car ride with her, and they'll be on the beach soon. He thinks that it's a great idea for them to be alone without Amy, but he also doesn't want to communicate on the phone the whole time. He's wishing that she would learn sign language so she could communicate with him better. And then, we're back in the car, and she asks him what he's most excited for on the trip. And he lists everything: the beach, the hotel, the food, seeing fish, maybe bars and dancing, everything. He wants it all. And of course, making love. Then she starts talking about, the first time they were intimate, it hurt a lot. Apparently, David is a blessed man. And she tells him he has to be gentle with her. And, that's all we have to hear about that. So I'll take it. They arrive at the resort. It's beautiful. They check in. They have mimosas waiting for them. And she tells us it's her first time at a nice hotel. And, it's his too. It's the most beautiful room she's ever had. And, how is she going to want to go home after this? And also, he could have probably paid for that whole house with this little trip. But he probably booked it before everything. Anyways, not my money. So, he tells us he is going to have to work many hours to pay for it. But she deserves it after everything she's been through. And, he needs the perfect place to propose. She tells him that it's hard for her that he has to go home soon. He responds with, I know, it's hard to type, so no more phones, just sign to me. And she says, okay, honey, babe. He wants to see what she's got, and she spells out, I will try. She'll try her best. But he knows that she only knows a little how to sign. He asks her, why she didn't try to learn before now, so that they could sign. And she has no idea what he's trying to say. So, back to the phone. It lasted 35 seconds. She says before they just did text and they would only sign a little. But I'm thinking, you knew you needed to learn for 2 years. Like what Amy said. It's been 2 years. You knew it was going to come up. He says that it bothers him that she doesn't use sign or try. And, he ignored it because of her mother's passing, but he wishes that she would learn. Communicating through text makes it hard to connect on a deeper level. And, in a way that she'll understand clearly. And, if they can't communicate, it'll be hard for them to have a future. He tells her he wants her to learn so they can talk more fluently. So she tries to ask him if he wants to shower. And he's like, yeah, let's shower and take a bath at the same time. And they take off to the shower and giggle. She's singing the wedding march. And she's like, wee. And he responds with a woo. And I thought it was really cool to hear him make a talking noise. So, that was kind of just a filler segment with them. I'm sure that they're going to get engaged. They're probably the best couple on this series, I think. So, probably not the one that, I don't like them as people the most, but they seem to be a real, genuine couple. They just love each other. And you can tell. All right, let's make our way over to Vietnam and talk about Riley and Violet. Riley is meeting up with her at a marketplace. He only has 2 days left there. And he knows this trip has been rough. And as much as he is frustrated that she can't take accountability for her mistakes, he has put 2 years in. And he understands that times can get tough. And you have to go through the hard moments. So he doesn't want to give up on her. They're walking around the market. She brings him over to the durian. I hear it's very stinky. I've never been around it. But I watch a lot of Food Network cooking competition type shows. So I've seen it. And I've seen everyone's reaction to it. So no thanks. He's never tried it though. And he's going to try a little piece. Excuse me. He doesn't like it. He says it tasted like eating dog excrement sauteed in butter. In garlic butter. I don't know why he would compare it to that, but yeah, ugh. Gross. Let me know if you've tried durian and what that was like. She tells him, this is the market where her and her mom go every day to buy food. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, there's a lot of smells here. And he's like holding a rag to his nose. And it's like, it's just making him not feel well. He says he needs water. She asks, like, what's wrong? And he's like, I need water. And then we move on to her, and she's telling us that he only has a couple days left, and she truly does want to spend time with him. But it's hard because he always destroys their good moments. You know, I think they both have a part in that. She's very closed off, and I think that really triggers him to act out. She tells us yesterday they got to fly some kites, but then Riley asked her if she regretted texting his dad, and she said no, and she just feels like he's someone who destroys emotions. She is telling him she doesn't know why he always thinks bad things. He's like, are you asking me or telling me your feelings? And she's just telling him her feelings. So he says, all right, I'm listening. She says she's honest with him, but he doesn't believe her. Like, apparently she's honest with him about everything. And she's good and kind, and she feels like he doesn't trust her. Riley's over here trying not to, hurl into the rag. And she asks him what happened, like, with his ex that hurt him so much. And he says, one of his exes made him believe he was going crazy, that he used to hear her saying, I love you on the phone to another person. He would ask who it was, and she would say she wasn't on the phone. It was just in his mind. Then he went to visit her, went in the house, and there was a guy in the closet. He was trapped in the closet. And, he knew the guy. So he doesn't trust anyone now, but especially women. She tells him, you had a bad love, but you can't think every woman is bad too. And he's like, I don't think they're bad, but she has to earn his trust. And once you have his trust and you do something to break it, it takes a lot to gain it back. And the only way he could do that is by asking questions. But Violet gets upset when he asks questions. So it's like, okay, maybe they're making a snail's pace progress here. Let's see. Like, she gets upset. She says it's about the past. And she asks him what he wants her to do now. And he wants to know if she regrets her actions. And if she says yes, then that's good enough. That means you grew as a person and you realize you shouldn't have done that. She says, like, okay, now she understands. And she says, when they fought and she sent his father mean messages, it was wrong and she is sorry. And he accepts that. He says it's not easy for her to admit when she's wrong, so her doing that is a big step. And then he offers to walk her home and asks to hold her hand, and she accepts. And, he wants to make sure the next 2 days they have open and honest communication so they can start their life as a family. So they had one good meetup at the market, probably because he was too sick to talk a whole lot. He was trying to deep breathe, so they had a good time. Next time we see them, Violet has her tour guide hat on, and they're taking a bus to go sightseeing. He feels like they had a breakthrough yesterday, so now he's feeling good about their relationship. He does wish that he had more time to work on their issues. But, they get on the bus, they're on top, it's a double-decker bus, they get cool sun-blocking hats. Like, has anyone ever been up on a double-decker bus? I have not. It just reminds me of Harry Potter. So, she tells us, she's sad he's leaving soon. Even if the 2 weeks wasn't perfect, she feels like they understand each other more now, and she believes he's a good man. She hopes that even though they're far apart, their relationship will go stronger. And that's great. They're driving around, and it's beautiful. I love the architecture. I love all, like, the plants, the plant life. It's so green. It's really pretty. She asks him if she can tell him something. And she says, he only has 2 days left, and she hopes that he knows her more and trusts her more. He says that he feels they've come so far, and no matter how many arguments and outbursts they had, they always come back together. So that means something. And she agrees. He says that he's been pushing her to be honest, and since things are going well, he needs to put all his cards on the table. So here we go, guys. All hail King Kill Feelings. She asks him if he still has insecurities. He says he does. And then he says, to be honest with you, I did call a private investigator to look into your background. And she's like stunned by the look on her face. He's like, but I didn't do it. He just thought about it for a second, but he didn't do it. She's like, you didn't trust me, so you hired an investigator. And he's like, yes, but it only came from us not communicating properly. She's like, you don't have the right to do that in Vietnam. And I really wanted so badly for Riley, because he already has this, he's got the shovel. He rented out the shovel permanently for the hole he's digging. I wanted him to say, well, I was talking to a private investigator in Vietnam, not America or something. Please tell her he lives there. She tells him that she doesn't think they're suitable together if he does that. That's what I think we were all saying. If you have to do that, then why? Why are you going there? What's the point in the relationship? He's like, well, I brought it up to tell her that he wants to be 100% honest with her. And to do that, he has to share everything, even if it's hard for him. Why didn't he do that yesterday at the market? Oh, yeah, because the smells made him sick. He just feels guilty because he's realizing that she was being honest and she's just guarded. And I think their culture over there, they don't talk about their business or their feelings or things, I'm not sure. But I think he felt guilty that he's been on her so much this whole time about her being honest, and he was hiding this. She, tells him, he's like, he wants to be 100% honest with her, and to do that, he has to share everything, even if that's hard for him. Poor guy. She tells him that she's no longer comfortable with this conversation. He says he understands that it's not acceptable in her country or culture, but it is in his. I'm like, no, sir. It is not real common here either. At least in the part of the country I live in and culture I live in. You Google search someone, or you look up their Facebook, check into their ex, maybe. You want to know who people are. But I've never met someone who just hired a private investigator to investigate someone they're dating, and then that was just normal and accepted. I would be so offended if someone did that to me. He's like, we American people have to check out who people are, and who they say they are. But now he met her, and he doesn't feel the need to do things like that. And, the point is, he never did need to do that. If he wanted to come meet her, he should have just came and met her. He's like, if they learn to communicate properly, they can do and accomplish anything together. They can move on and be a family eventually. She says she understands, but she wants to go home now. Now she doesn't feel good. She tells us she's shocked, she's sad and hurt, because after many times of explaining and arguing, he has never believed her or respected her. And she's given him a lot of opportunities, but today, learning his secret, she feels like this relationship is over, it's dusted, this is her last straw, Back to the bus. He's trying to tell her I know you don't feel good and you're upset, but we can get past this. That's what happens in a relationship. You get past it. That's nice for someone to say who's the one who did the crappy thing to the other person. It's okay. We can get past this. Like, you just want forgiveness. You don't tell me when I can get past something. How about that? So, don't tell her what she can get past. She's like, just be quiet now. And he's like, yes, ma'am. She's like, don't talk anymore. He's like, yes, ma'am. Like a child. Like she was scolding a child. And I'm not saying I agree with everything Violet did, or she's perfect, or she's handling things great. She was offensive to him when he got there. But come on. Like, can kill feelings. For sure. Like, I don't know. And then he gets defensive. He's so on her to be honest. But he's not honest with her. It's just hypocritical behavior. That's all. Next up, let's talk about Amanda and Rasvin. He's making his way back to the room. Last time we saw them, they had the big fight. He was outside crying his little heart out. He says, he has a lot of emotions, but he's such a nice guy and like a gentleman that he brought her a coffee. He tells us he thought the last few days they were building a stronger relationship. The last night was like the worst night of his life. He has never argued with anybody like this, and it really hurt him. It is hard for him to accept that it's over because he loves her and he wants it to work. He tells her last night, after she told him she loved him so much, she said things that really hurt him. So he asks her like what her true feelings for him are about, or what her true feelings about their relationship are. She said she obviously loved and cares about him, but they're just different. Isn't that obvious? He asked her, in what way are they different? She's like, you won't do anything to provide for your family. She's like, would you be a janitor while still trying to pursue an acting career? I couldn't see that. He's like, I fought for my dream, this whole time. And he doesn't want to be a janitor. He wants to work for his dream. And, is that bad? And, she's not saying to just be a janitor and give up all his dreams. She feels like he's going to come to the U.S. and she'll take care of him until he gets his dream. He says he doesn't need her money or for her to take care of him. He has too much pride to come to the U.S. with nothing. And he has too much pride to ask her for anything. He doesn't even ask his parents for anything. She's like trying not to laugh and tells him he's missing the point. He asked her to tell him her point and she says nothing. He's like, you think you need a guy to offer stability. A guy like how Jason was. And he tells her last night she compared him to Jason, but it's not fair. And it's not fair for her to tell him this now because he told her from the beginning who he was. And he wants someone who supports his dreams. He asked her if she understand, and she said, yeah. I know it's not fair to you, and I'm sorry, if I hurt you. Because she doesn't want to hurt him. After Jason, she wanted him to be the right person, but maybe they're not right for each other. Poor Rasvin is choking back tears, and he tells her it's not fair for her to do this to him. And she's sitting there cold as ice, emotionless, and he's in real pain here. He says she told him a lot of things. They were different. And she says she felt that way. He says, no, you didn't. He says he still doesn't understand what he did wrong. She's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just scared to be in a relationship. It's scary for her to move on and think of having a life with someone else. I think she might shed a tear now, maybe. She says maybe that's why she compares them, because she has all these emotions And when you spend a lot of your life with a person and then thinking of starting a new life with someone else is scary. And it's something she didn't think she would be doing. So maybe she does make excuses for her and Rasvin to break up because maybe it's hard for her to get over it. Okay. Listen, lady, you should have known this before you came over here and had this guy fall in love with you and tell him, I support all your dreams. You told us that you were worried about his music video, and I think that's what it's really about, is you controlling him and molding him into Jason. And the only tears that you shed here, like, that she shed here, were for her husband and her grieving process. It had nothing to do with her being sad and upset that she hurt this man and that she's playing with his heart and his emotions. So Rasvin asks her if she still wants to leave. She asks if he wants her to, and he's like, no, I'm asking you. I think you need to think about what you really want, and he needs to think about it too. So they're going to leave Dracula's castle and go home to do that. I cannot believe she ruined Dracula's castle. He especially for him, he probably loves going there. Ruined. She ruined it. He just feels lost and confused and sad and heartbroken. He doesn't know what the status of their relationship is. He feels like he's done everything he can for this relationship, and it's just too much. Later, we get to see the awkward car ride home. And you guys, the bear from the airport is in the back seat. Like, this ungrateful ass never even brought the bear, you know, that looked like roses that he got her at the airport, into the house. It's in the back seat. How dare she? So, anyway, it's pretty silent and awkward. So Amanda asks what he's thinking. He's tired, he's emotionally exhausted, and he can't tell her that he 100% still wants this relationship. Then she tells us that when she woke up this morning, she definitely felt like she was going to end things. But she's realizing her past trauma and grief may have caused issues. And it was wrong for her to compare him to Jason. No, she didn't compare him to Jason. She told him that he isn't half of the man that Jason was. A little different. She apparently knows she loves Rasvin now and wants to be with him. In a normal relationship, you know, it would be amazing. But she has something so devastating that she has to deal with. Like, well, damn, you should have dealt with that before trying to date while being emotionally unavailable. Back to the car. She tells him, so obviously she has unresolved issues, and it's, you know, more difficult than she thought to close the Jason chapter in her life. But she loves him, and she doesn't want them to break up. So, you know, run away. Rasvin, run away. If you can hear this, run away. He's like, so I should just accept to be treated like this. She says she understands, and it's not right that she does this to him, and she's sorry. Again, obviously, you know, it's so obvious. Obviously, it's something she's working through and trying to deal with. She is not working through it at all. She hasn't worked through it this whole, what was he 5 months he passed away. She's not doing nothing. Poor Amanda, obviously. Ugh. So he says he doesn't know, and, you know, they're supposed to go meet his parents tomorrow. She would like to try to stay and work on things, and she wants to meet his family. He says, okay, then. As soon as he says that, she immediately, like, latches onto his arm, and he says, you know, part of him wants to end this relationship, but it's hard to let go. And he doesn't want to cancel the trip to meet his parents because that means their relationship is over. And also, it's kind of like embarrassing to have to call your parents and say, you know, that girl I was so excited for you to meet, she's a complete psycho. I guess she's not a psycho. That's harsh, right? But she is not nice. So 2 hours later, they get home. she's trying to suck up and get close to him after at least a week of treating him like he had the cooties. All of a sudden, she's like, wants to kiss his neck and sit by him on the bed. Okay. So, he tells her they should pack. She starts hugging and kissing him. He is blocked off. He's like cold. Now who's cold as ice? Amanda? So, he gets up to pack. He says even though he's not sure he wants to break up with her, it feels like something in him is shutting down. She said really mean things to them. You know, she told him they don't have the same morals. He's half the man Jason was. And just some things you cannot take back. So he's trying to go shower and sleep. And she stops him to say, I know you're upset and hurt. Like she's talking to her child. This is how I talk to my kids. Actually, I'm not that, like, I don't talk to them like they're children. Well, my oldest, you know? Anyway, she's like, I know you're upset and hurt, but if we're going to be together, you can't stay like this. Like, I know it'll take time, but I'm putting in effort, so you should too. Like, okay, Miss Suckup, you don't get to decide how people respond to your terrible, hurtful behavior. I also feel like she's the type that doesn't want something unless it's a challenge or she can't have it. Like the friend challenged her in their relationship. So she slept with him to prove a point. She feels like he might leave her for being horrible. So she's in a suck up until he lets his guard down, brings her back, and then she'll probably leave him because then it's on her terms. She tells us like he's never acted like this to her before. He's cold and distant, no affection, nothing. And she only has a few days left, but she doesn't know if that's time enough to get back on track. And life doesn't give you a certain kind of love twice. And she feels like that was her love, or at least the second one. So I guess life does hand it out twice. You make no sense, lady. She doesn't want to lose him or let him go. No, she is not healed. She needs therapy. And Rasvin is just collateral damage at this point. And I feel really bad for him because I really think he did put everything into this and he was very honest and open and patient and loving towards her. She stomped all over it until it was put out. And then she's trying to bring the fire back. Like, some things are too late, like he said. I hope the best for him, and I hope they don't make it much longer, honestly. Okay, everybody, I need some Jesus after that. I don't know about you. So, let's talk about Misha and Nicola. Back at the dinner, Misha's meeting the family. The brothers are asking her to tell them about her, and they're debating back and forth about who's going to do that. She tells us she has no idea what is happening with him right now. Like, she's sitting there feeling really uncomfortable. They're supposed to reveal to his family who she is and the plans for the future, and now he's just checking out. He's sitting like as far away from her as possible and showing no emotion towards her. And she's like wondering if he's ashamed to admit that this is his girlfriend. Because if that's the case, that's a huge problem. So she says, just tell them. The brother's like, where do you know her from? He says that she put up a post about Jesus and he was correcting her. Then he added her on Facebook and they started to talk. And after 4 years, they were talking on the phone every day. And then the relationship became romantic. Like, I love you, she loves me. I thought that was funny. And the reason that she came from Minnesota to the Holy Land is so they can spend time together and know each other more. And hopefully get engaged. And they say, wow, in 6 years you didn't say anything about it. The one brother says he has heard about her, but he didn't know he had feelings because he never talked about it. So she asked them to tell Nicola's mom. They tell her in 10 days he's getting engaged, and everyone seems nervous for a second, but the mom is so happy about it. She's trying to get this grown-ass man out of her house already. So she's so happy she cries. The other brother asks where they're going to live, and he says in America, and they tell the mom if, they get married, he's going to leave and never come back. And she's like, good riddance. No, she says she wishes him a great life and that she'll just come to America. He tells us his mom cried and was so happy because it was her dream in life that he would get married. And he's happy, but when he starts to explain that she has 2 kids and is divorced and not a virgin, he's worried how will they take that. I don't think they're going to care as much as he does. He's like, I have to tell you something else. She's Catholic, but before that, she didn't know God. And she was married before and has 2 daughters. They are surprised. And he's like, yeah, you're surprised I would marry a divorcee. But the biggest shock is him not taking a virgin. And they tell Mama that she's divorced and has 2 kids. And she's like, so what? Tell her I say to him all the time, come on, come on. They tell Misha that she doesn't care. She always tells him to get married. She's like, he chooses his life, and I'm happy that he'll marry before, the mom passes. And, Nico is old, and you can't judge her for being married before and having kids. She's totally gonna have a party when he leaves and moves out. And she doesn't seem anywhere near, how he described her. She can hear just fine, I think. And I think he has been saying his whole life, I would never marry a divorcee. I would never marry someone who isn't a virgin. I would never marry someone with kids. I would never marry someone who's not a Catholic. Because when he listed it, he said, oh, she's Catholic, but she has all these issues. And they were probably surprised because of him and his standards and what he's always said. Not because of theirs. And the brothers say that he thinks Nicola didn't tell them about her because she's divorced with kids, and he might be scared his image of a religious person will get hurt, or scared they're going to look at him differently. They tell her that they're not there to judge anyone, and they think that he needs to be more open with his life. If he has a treasure like this, he needs to be more open to his brothers. They only wish the best for them and want her to be part of their family. She says, "Aw," and Nico is happy, maybe even blushing a little. And she says none of the things that he told her would be hurdles with his family seemed to be hurdles with them. They were more than accepting, and now she's wondering why she had to fight so hard to meet them. Now she's wondering if he's the one with the problem with her, and if he can't accept her in her past, they shouldn't get married. So we see them again. They're watching and cheering for some kids jumping off a wall into the sea, and I'm sure that this is a holy sight of some sort. He says last night he took her to meet his family, and he was nervous. He thought they wouldn't like her, and they did. So now he's relieved. He wants to celebrate. He took her to the city a car, and he says he grew up there all his life. He shows her the window to his old room that he slept in, and he says it's an old city with 5,000 years of history. It was the heart of the Crusader. After Jerusalem fell to Islam, the Crusader moved to Akkar and made her the heart of the empire. And he spent his childhood there, fishing, visiting his mom's family and his grandparents. So he's happy to show it to her. He's also excited to show her the world's best hummus. Then she tells us she met his family last night and it went good as far as her interacting with his mom and the brothers. She didn't bring up last night because they were tired, but his behavior confuses her. It's not adding up. She thinks that it's surprising how much trouble she had to go through to meet his family considering their reaction. So now she's wondering who is the issue with her, him or his family. They sit down and Misha orders. Nico is quiet and he lets her order. Then he starts yelling for the waitress, tells her they need milk with the coffee or something. Misha's like mortified that he's yelling in the restaurant. I'm sure it's fine. He tells her like she knows me. He says this isn't like America. Everyone knows each other and loves each other where he's from. So they get the food. He thanks the lady. Misha says it's very good and jumps right into it. She tells him that there's a lot they need to talk about. And he's like, he feels like everything was nice and good and successful. And he asks her if something's wrong. And she tells him, she was under the impression that they would be more judgmental of her because of what he told her. And they weren't. And she loves that and she's happy about it. But it seems like he's quick to want them to dislike her when they don't. He tells her that she has it all wrong. And she says maybe, but that's how she felt. She tells him like he couldn't have been farther away from her on the couch. Seemed like he didn't want to be there. He showed her no affection. And she didn't feel like they had a friendship, let alone a relationship. He says like that was the hardest day of life for him since she had landed. And he was stressed and they were at his mom's home and he just wanted to finish the drama. And like I gotta agree with him there. Like not only what he said, but they didn't know who she was. He's never brought a girl home. And it would be rude to be all like lovey-dovey in that type of situation. Then she gets to her real issue and says, if your family doesn't have an issue with me being divorced, is it possible that it isn't an issue with them, the issues with Nicola? She says, it isn't his culture with an issue, it's Nicola. He's like, is that how you feel? And she tells him that she's asking. He says there isn't anything about her that bothers him from her past. He tells her that he loves her a lot, and she knows that. And he's like, you don't believe me? He tells us that it bothers him that she doesn't believe him or trust him because he didn't give her emotion in his mom's home. And it's making him question if she thinks he's right for her, and now he's worried that she won't want to marry him. I personally just think that it's what I said. That all these years he's been talking about this godly, virgin-esque woman he was going to marry from the Holy Land. And that's not what he ended up with. And so now he has to look like a hypocrite or like he went against everything he's been preaching to them for however many years. And he feels like he looks like a hypocrite, like I just said. All right, thank you for everyone who stuck around this long. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't, and make sure to leave a comment. I sure love all of the ones that I get. So we're going to end off here with Gino and Jasmine. They're going to have a spa day from hell, and Jasmine is going to start off, she wants to clean his face. She tries to take off his hat. He says no. I'm not sure why she keeps trying with the hat thing. But, she asks him to turn it backwards. And he says, okay, I'll squeaky. And he takes a breath and does it all real quick. And she tells us they had a difficult conversation about her not wanting to have a baby with him. Even though he really wants it. So tonight she wants him to feel like the king of her heart. She's scrubbing his face with a wipe, and now she has like a fancy steamer. She definitely has the proper equipment for this. And then she lays him down. She puts a face mask on him. Then she says, she notices that when he visits, they have a hard time getting along. And then after a certain amount of time, they get along again. But then when he leaves, they just repeat that cycle. She asks him why he isn't saying anything. And he's like, I just want to enjoy this. And like, why do they need to talk about it now? She says because he's leaving and he always abandons her. He tells us that he hates leaving her, that they want to be together. But for the visa to be approved, he has to be working. She's like, baby, listen. First you said 6 months for the visa and then 9. And now, they're at 13 months. And he's like, yeah, but we had the pandemic. And she's like, oh, there always is an excuse. Like Gino made the pandemic happen or controls the length of the visa process. Poor Michael's been waiting 3 years and he had to marry Angela. So she says, she wants him to say he can't live without her and they can find a way to be together super fast. And unfortunately, that's just not how life works. He's like, okay, so when I get home, I'll follow up with the immigration, file a request, and it'll be ignored as usual, is what she says. He tells her that she needs to have patience. And this reminds me of this scene in that 70s show when Eric gives Donna his jacket because she's cold. And then Jackie's like, I'm cold too. And Kelso's like, damn, Jackie, I can't control the weather. That's just what it reminded me of. She's like, okay, well, if I can't have my man, will you be willing to help me pay for this apartment until the visa is approved? Because she's sick of moving. It puts stress and sadness and misery in her life. Like, okay, so the spa day wasn't to thank him for, giving up his desire to have a child for you. It was to butter him up for the apartment. I see you. So Gino's like, but this is the best of the best. Can't we find a place for $1,500 or $2,000? It's a hard no from Jasmine. She knows he can afford it, so paying for the apartment until visa approval shouldn't be an issue. But for her, it's not just about the apartment. Gino has so many chances to show her that, she's his priority. And she wants him to hire an immigration lawyer and pay for this apartment, but he won't do any of that. And it's like, well, I don't know why his family thinks she's a gold digger. He's like, we'll get you a good place, don't worry. She's like, but I want this place. He's like, can you grab your phone? We'll look for an apartment right now. I think he should tell her, I'll give you $1,500 and you can pay the rest. She's like, can you just please say yes for once? He said yes to not having a prenup. He said yes to this apartment in the first place for 1 month. He said yes to your sister living there and supporting her apparently. He said yes to not having a baby. When does he get to say no to you, is my question. So he's like, yeah, you sound a little spoiled. She's like, I've been so good to you, but I'm spoiled because I asked for a decent place. I mean, this is more than decent. This is top notch. She's like, even though when I met you, you had money for sugar babies and you paid $300 for dates and you took your ex to Disney and, you can't forget Legoland. Apparently, he paid more for a week vacation and then she's begging him for 1 month for her to live in a comfortable place. He's like, no. She's like, how much did you pay for that vacation? And he's like, you cannot compare that to rent. She's like, give me a number. And he's like, you can't compare the two. And honestly, he doesn't owe her an equal monetary value of things he spent on girlfriends past, sugar babies past, anything before her. Because he has done above and beyond for her these last couple of years. She then, gets mad. She calls him a piece of trash. He's like, you're trash. You want the most expensive place. He she tells him to leave. She starts throwing his stuff. So he's like, I'm going to throw your stuff. She goes into the bathroom, starts screaming for him to get out of her way. Hard, to take this really serious when he's in a bathrobe and she has butterfly clips from the 90s in her hair. But okay. She slams the door. He tells her not to throw stuff. She starts screaming like, F you 100 times. And she screams it with like all her might and fury. He paid for all these women and she's just asking for a month's rent. He said he would help her, and he did already pay a month's rent. She calls him a cheap weirdo mother effer. She tells him to leave her effing house. She don't want him there. She screams, get out, slams the door. He says he's done, walks away. And as a throwback to their earlier fight, she throws out the electric toothbrush. So, later, when we return to Jerry Springer 90-day edition, she's crying. She's picking up her things off the floor. She doesn't want to leave him because of money, but he doesn't love her or appreciate her. What exactly is it that Jasmine does for Gino? What does she add to his life? If you guys know, let me know. What does she add to his life? She sits on the same couch as him. She's just sobbing. She tells him she's tired. She doesn't think he wants to be with her. He doesn't want to make this process easier. He told her if she wants to pay for a lawyer, she can. So she isn't helping it either. She's not trying. She's sitting there like a helpless little child who just wants everything handed to them. And then she's scared of going to America because she won't have family. She just has him. Anytime she asks him for financial help, he reacts this way. All he said was she could find a cheaper apartment, which is reasonable. Gino's not living in a penthouse suite, not working in the same building as his ex, living his best life, getting all the plastic surgery he desires. He does tell her, that's bullshit. He's been helping her the last 2.5 years with money. And he wants her to tell him, when he gets credit for that. She doesn't appreciate all the help he's given her. And she's like, you never acknowledge what I've done. And what she's doing and all the effort she puts in. And I don't see that. And he says, he knows moving isn't fun. And she says, moving to the U.S. too, that gives her anxiety. So I guess that's all she's doing for him in the effort is moving to America so she can spend all his money more efficiently and, closely. She thinks that he doesn't understand that she was born in Colombia and she's happy there. And he has an attitude with her and she's scared that he's going to treat her badly when she moves. Gino barely speaks. She treats him badly, in my opinion. And he tells her he isn't going to treat her bad when she moves. That's ridiculous. And she says he treats her bad there. He disagrees. She says, I was massaging you and you just started yelling at her. She was trying to suck up to him and get her way. He was trying to sit there and enjoy what she was doing. And she wanted to get money out of him. That's the only reason she did it. And she was the one who started yelling. She called him trash immediately when he said no. So she just wants to feel loved, and she's asking if he understands. When he does things like this, or when she acts like this, is when she needs the most love. And he's trying to give her all the love he can, but he is not paying $3,000 a month for a place. He wants to look at other options and see what they cost. She's like, because he's not the one being affected. Yeah, he is. His wallet's being affected, lady. That's why he wants a better, cheaper, financially sound place to live in. He's like, no, that's just the way it goes. This is what we have to do. And he's sorry. That's the way it is. Gino's foot is down. He tells us he's busting ass to support them every month, and this is the thanks he gets. Then they're kind of doing that interview shady thing where someone's talking about their partner who's sitting right there. Jasmine does not look pleased. So now we're into the interview. She says it's not just money, that they've had so many problems, and he did wrong things to her, and she forgave him because he's always her priority. But with him, everything else comes first. His money, his family. And that hurts because she should be the most important person in his life. Even more important than his family. He's like, well, it would be a tie between his family and Jasmine. She gets mad immediately. Starts yelling. She doesn't want to be tied with anybody. And she wants to know why she's with him if she isn't the most important person in his life. And he's like, well, after marriage, you will be. And she loses it. She's like, F marriage. She's screaming. And he goes, can you yell a little louder? I can't hear you. That was a good one, Gino. She calls him a POS, and he's like, that's you. And I think it's so funny that anytime she insults him, he's like, you're the worst sex person ever. Or, no, you're trash. He's like, I know you are, but what am I? You know, I'm rubber, you're glue. So she's like, you're an idiot. How could you ever compare me to those like peasants that you call family? And he yells and he's like, you don't think my family's important. And he asks her if she has brains. And she calls him an idiot and says his family's trash. This is all in the interview. So we're getting a double feature fight right now on our hands. I hope you guys can hold on. So he's yelling, you're trash, and, you know, saying like him and his family are trash, so she's trash. And I think, you know, if they didn't have a reason not to like her before, his family certainly has a reason not to like her now. She then starts yelling, you know, she's going to go sleep with her ex. He knows how to do it. He's the best man she ever had, and she's going to go back to him. And her ex is the most important person in her life. He says, go back to him. Tells her to go F herself, tells her to go to hell. And she's like, do you want to see a recent video of me screwing Dane? It's recent. I had him a month ago. He asks her if that's true. She swears to God it is. He calls her a whore, and she's out of there. She doesn't want to see him or breathe the same oxygen. She's done. He needs to be done. Oh my gosh. That was rough. And I don't know, like, I'm sure what she was saying is true, but she did say in therapy that she says the most mean, hurtfulest thing she could say. But if she really has videos of her hooking up with Dane a month before this interview, and Gino has paid thousands upon thousands of dollars for her to have a comfortable life for 3 years, she doesn't acknowledge that. She just wants more and more. She doesn't want him to have anyone close to him in his life. Like, that is abusive. So I'm hoping by the end of this, they're not together. I hope we don't have to see it anymore. Like, she is so abusive. And I don't think him saying, like, do you have brains in your head and stuff like that to her is right either. But she is spewing just venom constantly at him. Like, if people said stuff like that to me, I would probably be very upset. Like, I would crumble. I'd be like, oh, that's so mean. Why would you do that to me? So at least Gino can take it, I guess. But that's not good either. So let me know what you guys thought of that double feature fight. Of course, they ended us in the middle of it, so maybe you can log into Jasmine's OnlyFans to see the video of her and Dane. I'm not gonna. I would never. Anyway, that's it for this week of Before the 90 Days. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to let me know what you thought and subscribe if you haven't. Yeah, I hope you guys have a great day or night, whatever time it is when you get to see this. And don't forget to take some deep breaths and be nice to people, compliment a stranger, something like that. It goes a farther way than you know. I went through the drive-through the other day, and I had been like in a rush to get these kids in the car. And I went through the drive-through, and she's like, "I love your makeup." And I was like, "Oh my God, I felt like I just slapped it on and it looked terrible. Thank you so much." So doing things like that really does help a person out. So anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.